Eu não consigo ver. Agora tá, eu acho.
Agora tá ao vivo, Bruno.
Oi, pessoal.
Boa noite, pessoal.
Boa noite, pessoal.
Anima aí, Matheus.
Vai, Matheus, fala alguma coisa pra gente aí. Dá uma
Tá frio
animada.
aí, Matheus?
Tá muito frio, por isso que eu não tô animado.
Ô, Matheus hoje parece que tá pra baixo. Ô, Matheus, tá tudo bem contigo?
É o frio.
É o frio? É porque o cara que vem
E
lá
o
de cima,
coordination.
né?
Peraí,
E o
vou colocar
coordination
esse ligado
também.
aqui.
O Léo me fez estudar corda solta já faz 2 semanas, aí não tá saindo ainda.
Ô, corda
negócio.
solta é a melhor coisa que tem pra estudar. Melhor
Eu
coisa.
adoro estudar corda solta.
Mas aí coloca o dedo, entendeu? Não fica bom, não.
Eu gosto de estudar corda solta até o momento que tem que botar um dedo, né? Daí já era.
Aí eu coloquei o dedo, aí não saiu, entendeu? Aí tem aquele lance da nota pontuada, tá triste. Lembra, né, que vocês têm que fazer o apoio
Cadastro,
bonitinho?
falou.
É, não tá saindo não, entendeu? Aí se anima.
Boa noite pro meu pai que tá assistindo já. A galera que tá aí já vai mandando boa noite pra gente.
Ah, agora eu vi. Boa noite. Por que às vezes demora bastante pra mim? Ah, tá. É porque pelo YouTube você falou que vai mais rápido, né? Demora pra aparecer os comentários pra mim.
Pra aparecer até o... Peraí, deixa eu ver o negócio aqui.
Tipo, ainda não apareceu aqui pra mim. Ah, não apareceu.
André Melo, segue nós lá na página do Facebook. O Israel tá devendo, mas eu lembro aqui aí.
O que é pra fazer?
Play Israel Play.
Oh, hashtag Play Israel Play, que é minha hashtag. Não esqueçam de botar aí.
Deixa eu dar um oi aqui.
Vai, Bruna, dá um oi. O Bruno, tá parece que você tá com o computador, tipo, aqui em cima, ó. Quando
Eu tô.
tá falando. Parece que você tá, tipo...
Não, eu tô mesmo.
Sério?
Uhum.
Que guria mais engraçada.
Não, tem vários...
Aê, Karine, Play Israel Play. Ó, a Karine tá concorrendo pra ganhar o livro, ó. Ela não tá de brincadeira.
Ainda não viu. Ah, agora apareceu.
As regras são o seguinte, ó. Eu tô contando cada vez que as pessoas usam a hashtag Play Israel Play. E aí, a milésima pessoa que usar essa hashtag vai ganhar o livro. Então já estou contando.
Mas você já contou.
Tá no número 5 agora. Esse da Karine foi o número 5.
Oh, mas eu já escrevi umas 3, 4 vezes, eu acho.
Não, mas tem que postar em público. No grupo não vale. Ó, meu pai já botou a sexta.
Não, mas eu já botei no Instagram 2 vezes, pelo menos.
É? Então eu vou ter que recontar depois.
Eu coloquei no... Qual é mesmo o nome? No Fimuca, não conta não. Pra o Nacional. Então conta, né?
O Nacional. É que o lance não é quantas pessoas veem a tua hashtag, é quantas vezes tu publica, né? Ó, o Bruna já tá ali. A hashtag vai viralizar ainda. Mas enfim, Matheus, tu quer fazer os teus anúncios de começo, que depois vem no fim também?
Pessoal, lembre de seguir o Instagram.
Não, mas com energia, Matheus. Eu sei que tá frio, mas vai com...
Põe aquela música legal, vai.
Não, só fala, mas com energia.
Então, pessoal, sigam o canal e se inscrevam. E ativem o sininho. Eu amo vocês.
Isso aí, Matheus.
Isso aí. Sigam a gente no Instagram. A gente tem agora a página no Facebook também.
Temos página no Facebook.
Curte.
Viu, André Melo? Pode seguir.
Curtir, né?
E uma enquete, pessoal. Se vocês querem aprender Jutsu do Naruto, escreva aí, que na próxima live eu ensino.
O quê?
Jutsu do Naruto. Eu posso ensinar a fazer Katon Gokekyo no Jutsu.
Nem sei o que é isso, mas tudo bem.
Jutsu bola de fogo.
Eu acho...
Pessoal, lembrem o pessoal de fazer perguntas também. Pessoal, quem quiser fazer pergunta durante a live.
Isso, exatamente. E a gente vai começar a qualquer momento, a gente tá só esperando a Sônia dar oi, porque a gente só chama o convidado depois que a Sônia dá boa noite.
Cadê a Sônia?
Sônia tem 10 segundos para dar boa noite. Daí vai dar 5 minutos.
Tô sentindo falta da Sônia já.
Pois é, e tô esperando também o Samuel Dionísio aí, que disse que ia estar por aí. Ele mandou uma mensagenzinha pra mim antes. E... Ah, tá ali a Sônia. Podemos chamar o nosso convidado?
Podemos.
Ok, então nesse momento nós vamos chamar o nosso convidado, Brad Douglas Deubner. Hello.
Hi.
Hey guys.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
I'm sorry, I have no idea how to pronounce your last name. Was that even close to?
It was very close. I grew up with it being said Deubner, but it's originally a German name, so I guess it should be Deubner, but I don't think.
Exactly, because I always said Deubner, but then in your video you recorded, you said Deubner, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go with him, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually adopted as a baby, so actually I'm not even German.
Oh,
but that's another interview. So
that's
we can
that's
do
awesome.
we can do one on DNA tracing and the art of the viola or something.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being here today. We're really honored to have you with us. And since we're talking about you as a baby, could you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how did you become a violist?
Sure. So after I was adopted, basically, I started on the violin when I was 9 in West Virginia, actually, in Parkersburg, West Virginia. And so actually my first memories were listening to and playing fiddle music, which I really loved to hear as a kid. But then I moved to St. Louis, where I had a wonderful teacher, the concertmaster of the symphony there, for my junior high years. And then I went to Houston for my high school years and studied with Friedel Lack, the violinist. And then I went to Eastman for 6 years, did a master's in viola and an undergraduate in violin. But it was really, I think, my freshman year at Eastman that I fell in love with the viola. And my teacher convinced me to stay with violin and become as good a violinist as I can possibly be, because I'll be a better violist. And so I started taking violin and viola at the same time for the next 3 years of my undergraduate with Martha Katz of the Cleveland Quartet. And then I stayed and did a master's with John Graham, who is really, in many ways, the grandfather of modern viola playing. And so I think he was one of the influential people in my life who challenged me to think like a creative person as opposed to a robot that you're kind of programmed to play one way, you know. So that was my background as a, growing up.
That's awesome. And since you just mentioned about like the way that he taught, why did you say there were like characteristics of someone who teaches and inspires you to be, creative and not just a robot? I'm just wondering.
I mean, what are the qualities that those teachers?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, the thing about John would pick up an apple and say, "Have you ever seen the apple from this perspective?" Like, no, never thought of that. And he was the first person I saw give a solo viola recital of all contemporary music, written all for him in an art gallery with art all around him. And I just thought that was wicked cool. So I think my formal technical training came more from my earlier years, but John was an artist and really encouraged me to start thinking on my own in a way.
So he's basically like the topic that we're gonna talk about today. Like you basically just described him as, what I imagined that you were gonna tell us about. Right.
Well, that was quick. I'll see you later.
That was easy, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's very interesting that we're gonna talk about being your own advocate in music, and I think that the very interesting thing is the word advocate, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't actually exist in Portuguese, like a direct translation. Yeah, when I had to like put it in Portuguese, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to adapt this somehow. So, would you mind?
In legal terms, an advocate is a lawyer for the plaintiff. So
Exactly.
Someone whose job it is to support the interests of their client. And so as musicians, I can't think of a better person who could speak for me than me. So why should I rely on some manager who doesn't know anything about me, you know?
Yeah. But how does one, become like that or start doing that? Because it feels like it's easier said than done. You know what I mean?
I think I smelled way too much paint thinner as a baby, so something is just not quite. For me, my journey has been very non-linear. My first job was getting an orchestra job. My very first audition, and then my next audition, and I basically did orchestra, and then from there I auditioned for a quartet and did that for a few years, and then was a founder of a new quartet, which was a lot of fun. And then from there, I did some teaching at colleges, and everything just kind of naturally flowed into the next thing, even though you really can't see what's around the bend. So I think, Israel, what you're really talking about is one's attitude. I think you have to really be passionate about what you do. I think it's really important to have a goal and then really make choices that put you in that direction, knowing full well that you may change, which is fine, but have a goal. And I think for me, when I discovered about 12 years ago that what I really want to do is play concertos, be a soloist, I understood very quickly that just because you want to be a soloist doesn't mean that you have to be the best soloist or even the busiest soloist. The day after I played my first concerto with a major orchestra, I was like, oh man, this is what I want to do. I can totally do this. And the next day I woke up and was like, I'm a soloist. I only had 3 orchestras that year that I was playing with, but so what? That's actually a lot for viola. Now I'm playing with 12 to 14 orchestras every year, all over the different continents, and I love it. But I think the tools that I learned on the way, how to make my own website, how to make my own videos, which I'm not very good at actually, but I'm learning. We've got a lot of time right now. So I'm learning how to do that. How to talk to people, how to sell yourself in a way that shares with them your excitement and enthusiasm for what you do, as opposed to sounding like a carpet salesperson or a car salesman. That's not the way to do it. So I think a combination of the fact that I'm a violist, unusual, I have a lot of pieces written for me, so I can usually do a premiere with an orchestra, unusual. And third, I think that conductors have just really responded to my positive proactiveness about wanting to do this. And I don't, it's funny. A lot of times I'll give lectures on tour when I'm playing with orchestras. I'll give a master class somewhere. And so I'll do the traditional one where they'll play for me and I say, you sound great, next. But I would also then say, hey, who wants to meet me tomorrow at Starbucks and we can talk about careers? And so they all come and we just hang out and we talk about life things, because that's where you really learn, outside of the master class. And one of the most important lessons that I learned, and maybe the 3 of you, because you're all professionals and teachers and players, can pass on to your students as well, how to react to the word no. What does no mean? No means not right now. That's all it means. It doesn't mean no, bye. No, that, you know what that no is? That's a non-response to an email. That's a no. But if they actually took the time to write and say, sorry, that's not a no, that's just a not right now. And I've had many engagements with orchestras where it's taken 6 years of me constantly every 6 months saying, hey, maestro, just got back from here. I want you to hear this really cool piece. And they actually love knowing what I'm doing. And so that's one of the important strategies, I think, as someone who needs to be their own advocate, is to collect as much data about yourself, videotapes, recordings, testimonials from your teachers, conductors you worked with, put on your website, create a YouTube channel. All of these things are ways then that you can point what you do to a potential employer, or what I like to say is a potential collaborator. So
what if, like, because like to me it sounds like you're a very proactive and outgoing and you talk to people, but what if someone just doesn't have that quality? Like someone can be a fine violist, can be a fine person also, can have
wow,
a
both.
right. Well, right, that's too much to ask.
I have to really put my thinking cap on.
But what if, like the thing that person lacks is like just going and doing this.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a deficit. It's not that they lack that. Not everyone wants to do what I do. I know many amazing violists who at the thought of standing in front of 3,000 people and a really good orchestra where half the violists can probably play you under the table anyway, they would probably faint at the thought of doing that. For me, it's the happiest thing. I just love doing that. So I think it depends on who you are. You shouldn't. I guess that's really the whole point. Being a self-advocate can also work for someone who wants to go into orchestra or someone who wants to be in a quartet. And of course, in a quartet, you need, as you do in all chamber music ensembles, you need three qualities. You need talent, which almost everyone has. That's the easy one. You need to have a really good business sense, and you have to hope that at least one or two of them have that. And third, you have to be a nice person. And all three of them are so important. So I think when you're asking about what if you don't have that positive quality that maybe I have, then that doesn't mean you still can't do what you love to do. If you want to be a soloist, I think just like being a teacher or being an orchestra player or anything, you have to still sell yourself in a proactive way that shows to the world how passionate you are about what you do. And I think a shy person can do that also. That's why you can make a video of your playing. You don't have to like play for them in person. You don't have to talk to them. But I do think it's important to be your own ambassador. So I think it's really helpful, even if you are shy, to kind of come out of your shell a little bit. I actually was not nearly this talkative 15 years ago. I had no idea I was going to do this. And now I can't shut up. So.
Well, we're here to listen to you. We have time, especially me because I'm in Central Daylight, right? So I have even more time today. Um, yeah. So like, if you were to give us like more specific details about promoting yourself and being your own advocate,
Yeah.
besides playing well, but if you could
Yeah.
be even more,
Well, so I mentioned to the people out there that I was going to talk about this thing. Maybe this will help. So this here is my genie lamp, okay? And this to me symbolizes what you need to do to follow your dreams, okay? So imagine, for all those that are out there listening to this that I can't see, that you're walking along a beach and you're the only one there. Maybe it's getting late in the evening, it's sunset, it's not quite clear, and you're walking and you see something shiny in the sand sticking out. And you walk closer and go, oh, that looks like a lamp. So you bend over and you pick it up. It's like, wow. You look around, no one's here. I'm going to do it. And so you rub the lamp and a genie comes out. I know, it's crazy. And you're like, whoa, it's really true. It happens. And so the genie tells you, yes, you have one wish. Now, of course, the story of Aladdin is about 3 wishes, right? And I think that's one of our problems as musicians. How many times have we studied a degree simply because it's our backup plan? We don't know if we're good enough to get a job in the Pittsburgh Symphony. So I'm going to spend 5 years and go into debt and become a doctorate, when really what I want to do is get into the Pittsburgh Symphony. But why spend time and money on a backup plan when you can actually spend your time on your one wish? And what I tell students and colleagues even, if you ask yourself, what is the one thing you want to do or be, and whatever that is, it will come true, they kind of stop in their tracks, because it's like, whoa, you mean it would happen? Then it becomes a rather scary question, because all of the, oh, I don't know, it's gone. It's gone, because it can happen. And I know that sounds really naive and almost childlike, but to be an artist, you have to be kind of childlike. And it reminds me of, imagine a cliff, and there's two people, and they both walk up to the cliff, and they look over the edge, and one person says, that might hurt, I don't think I'll do it. That's most people. Okay. And then there's the other person who says, I got to do it, and they just jump. That's an artist. And you have to be that crazy to do that. And so whatever the answer is that you give to the genie, it's your own personal answer. And when you make that decision, that's what you are. And then you just work on it, because if you want to be, let's say you really want to be an orchestra player, you want to be in the Berlin Philharmonic. Like, who wouldn't want to be in the Berlin Philharmonic, right? So that's your goal. You never get into the Berlin Philharmonic. Instead, you get into a smaller regional orchestra in upstate New York, but you're happy doing it because it's what your dream is. So you've succeeded, So anyway,
That's awesome.
I think the first step is defining what you want to be, and then you learn how to sculpt yourself to be that. And I think there's too much emphasis put on competition, how you compare to other people. It's not about that.
Yeah, and talking about choosing your path in your career, I know that Mateus has a question. I think he's gonna ask in Portuguese, but then I'll just translate to you. So, Mateus.
No, I really want to speak
English. I was wondering if you could tell us your opinion about 30-year Violet doing masters or specialization abroad. What do you think of it?
Well, first of all, that was awesome English. What did you say? I'm not completely sure I got all of the words. Are you asking about the pros and cons of studying abroad?
So the thing is, when you're like specifically like 30 or older, so he's talking about building your career at a advanced age.
That's a really good question, because I do a lot of playing in South America and Central America, and very often the students at these festivals are like 29, 32. They're much older than their counterparts in America, and through no fault of their own, sometimes the level isn't as high as it is in Los Angeles or New York. That's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean that their love of music isn't any, less. It's just as important. So I have a lot of friends that fall into that category, Mateus. I would say, what did you answer to the genie? What was your answer? And do it. I think it's great to want to continue to improve or to make a change, because we are creatures that change. That's what it means to be human. We change and we evolve. So I think it's great. I always encourage students to study abroad to get another perspective, but I also feel that you're going to learn the most when you're out of school, because that's when you really have to figure out how to project yourself. The advantage of school is that it's safe. And I don't mean safe in a bad way. I mean, it's a chance to experiment. Okay. So I remember I was last fall up at the Berklee College of Music in Boston giving a lecture to a classroom of young composers, and they have the same issues and fears that violists have, which is, how the heck am I going to do this when I'm out of school? You know, and I gave them the same suggestions. You got to believe in yourself. Use this time in school to get data about yourself. So if you've written a quartet piece, get your friends to play it, make a recording of it, make a YouTube channel, put it on there, get some faculty to say things about it, and just start basically being your own manager, which is what we all have to do. So I don't think there's ever an age, Mateus, where you're too old to say, oh, I'm too old to do this. No, you're not. I mean, I am 52 years old. I started being a soloist when I was 40. Okay. So I know I look like I'm 26, but still, it really doesn't matter when you do what you want to do, as long as you're happy. Okay.
I think it's really good to hear that, especially because, you know, it's very common for us to start later, also because we don't have the same music kind of education that we have like here in the States. So for example, you know, when you go to 6th grade and then you have to choose an instrument, you know, we don't have any of that. So it's sometimes it's a little bit harder. So I'm happy to hear about it, just because
Yeah.
it's a reality for us that we tend to, you know, start. Some of the greatest teachers in Brazil actually started when they were like on their 20s, right? And they have like really good jobs in some of the best universities in Brazil. But I think it's just really great to hear about that. And I didn't even know, you know, like, it's also great to hear that you started your soloist career when you were like 40, and you have been able to do so much and gather so much, and you know.
I mean, I believe that when you are on your journey, it's hard to have the perspective because you're the one driving. You can't watch yourself driving it because it's like, unless there's a mirror, I don't know what I look like, right? And that's your life path. But I can definitely say that everything I did from the point of age 9 to the first concerto I premiered by Lalo Schifrin, all had a direct relation. Playing in orchestras helped me learn how to blend. Playing in quartets helped me learn that I had an individual sound, because you're the only violist. And that's when I first started getting feedback that I was special. And you know, it's a very natural thing to not have as much confidence until people start telling you, you know, you're not that bad, really. You know, I never even thought of that. And then, of course, my quartet, we would do a lot of premieres. A lot of composers wrote for us. And then I had a trio with clarinet and piano. So I'm the only string player, which was very soloistic. And then I had a guitar viola duo, and we made recordings with all of these instruments. So I was basically kind of training myself to be who I am without realizing it. And I think we're all doing that in a way. So
since you're talking about your own path, I have one question that was sent directly to us. Let me just put here on the screen real quick.
Yeah.
Let me see. Oops, I think that's the wrong one. Just kidding.
Okay.
No, I'm just making a joke. Presuming people will understand. This is the real one.
How was the process of getting to the technical level you have today? And what were your biggest challenges? Well, first of all, I don't think I've arrived at any technical level. I mean, I am always trying to get better. So for me, when I teach, I kind of teach the way I play myself. In the morning, I practice my scales slowly with vibrato, and I work on technique because I think it's so important to have technique. And I teach at Queens College in New York, and some of my students are very talented performance majors, and some are very talented music education majors. And I tell them, you know, I'm gonna work you guys the same. No one's gonna get it easier because they're not performance, you know, because you all have to play well. If you're gonna grow up to be, let's say, a public school music teacher in the Bronx, you better be able to play your acts pretty gosh darn good, because first of all, they're going to respect you. And you need to be able to demonstrate on your instrument, like really. And so I think it's important to play at the highest level you can, even if you're just going into teaching. No one ever just does anything. And if you're going to be a performance major, you're going to teach. Everyone's going to teach. So I kind of treat both people as two sides of the same coin. So.
And what were the biggest challenges that you had? Especially, and by the way, you were just telling us before about rejection, in being like your own advocate, and like, how do you deal with that? Because that's just something normal for us to deal with rejection also.
It is normal to deal with it, but I think just like an audition or even other things in life, a relationship or just any task, anything that you're striving for that you fall short, that's a learning experience. And I always tell my students and my own kids, it's so important to set goals. But if you reached your goal, you set it too low. You're not supposed to reach your goal, right? So.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I think Bruna has something that she wants to ask you also.
Yes. So what's the difference between playing something that was written for you or something that it wasn't? And also I would like to know if you had like some partnership with the composer that wrote it.
Okay. Well, so the first question, one of the things that I love about playing new music is that it's a chance to work with the composer. I almost always have a dialogue with them in real time. We'll have a Skype meeting and I'll play a movement for them and we'll have back and forth. Or I'll go into New York and go to his apartment and we'll work on it together and he'll be at the piano, things like that. So I always enjoy that process because it's sort of like the composer is the creator and you're like the priest, and your job is to take the message and send it out to people. And I'm not really that religious, but to me it's a very accurate relationship. And so the goal is, of course, to tell the story to people. And to answer the other person's question about technique, the more technique you have, the easier it is to tell that story. It takes a lot of technique to be musical. And I think also when you're practicing slowly for technique, you need to play musically also. So I like to think of musicality and technique as, again, the same thing. Your second question was about, you asked two questions. The difference between a new, so anyway, yeah. The nice thing about learning new music is that then when I play Hofmeister or Telemann or Vivaldi, this past winter I played a Vivaldi d'Amore concerto that I transcribed in Italy, and that was scary because it's like crazy hard, and it's not for viola. It's for a 5-string instrument that goes way high. But what I'd like to do is I like to take the same collaborative spirit to a piece by Bruch or Walton, because, if I'm playing the Walton Concerto, which I've done many times with different orchestras, it's not the same old thing. I'm looking at the score and thinking, okay, Bill, what do you want to do here? And it's a conversation. His music keeps him alive, and that's my job. It's like finding his book, and I'm going to read it again and again and again. I'm not going to read it the same way, and the words mean different things as I get older also. So I think it's really helpful to play new music because I think it keeps playing the old music fresh in a new way. Okay.
That's very interesting.
You had another question, Bruna?
I think you just answered that, but
Did I?
I was asking if you, like, in the process of writing, you had like some, I mean, like some partnership with the
Yeah,
composer?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, at any one time, there are literally 10 people writing concertos for me. And I know them all in different levels. You know,
Okay.
if there's someone right now from Estonia writing a concerto for me, which is true, I never met them. We've talked on the phone. He sent me a couple of sketches, and that's that. But when it gets a little farther down the road, then I'll play an entire movement for him or her, and go from there. So you know, I love that collaborative process. And you know, we were talking earlier about the different stages of one's development. And when I was in a quartet, I loved the give and take and the spontaneity. Similarly, if you're playing a concerto, like this fall, I did Richard Danielpour's concerto with 4 different orchestras this fall, all over the different parts of the country, and every experience was completely different. So it's sort of like playing a Brahms sonata with a different pianist. It's a new piece. It's not me holding on to my way and making sure the pianist plays it the way that I no, that's not music. That's accounting, right? That's not music. And so if I'm playing a concerto with a different orchestra, it's a new piece, a different conductor, totally new piece. A different day, I'm different. So it's always fresh. And I think you know, even though most musicians will be orchestra players, it's hard to keep that fresh being an orchestra, but I think it's totally necessary to really get into, you know, the very best orchestras, the people there. You know, there are always issues, but they are passionate about what they do. They really are. I find it interesting. The older I get and the more experience I get when I go to festivals where the other artists are like really famous, and I'm like nobody. They're all in their rooms practicing slowly all the time because for them it's like an honor code. You know, it's not about hubris or their ego. That's when they're younger. Now they're actually really amazing, and it's not ego. It's called honoring the people you're playing with. You know, and that's true with like the New York Phil. When they're on tour, they're all in their rooms practicing their butts off. And I know this for a fact.
You also did.
I'm sorry, you cut out there. What?
Oh, I'm sorry. You also did get commissions from Brazil, right? If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. So how was that for you?
I should have sent that one in the link. Lidwino Pitumbera from Paraíba has written 2 concertos for me and some sonatas. Last summer, I actually premiered his second viola concerto in Quito and Guayaquil and Popayan, Colombia, and Cali. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I have a lot of wonderful friends from Brazil. And, you know, one of the things I love about Brazil is it's kind of like, it reminds me of the United States in a good way, in that it's a bunch of different states and it's about the same size. And you guys have such a rich history of music going back to Mozart. You know, I mean, it's really incredible, but we don't know this stuff. Americans, Europeans, we don't know this rich 400 years of classical music from Brazil. So I hope one of you guys takes it on yourself to start playing these pieces because that's just, it's a wealth of knowledge there.
Is there like any?
I'd be doing that if I was living there.
Is there like any passage of the one of these the Pitumbera concertos that you like demonstrate to us? Because I'm just really curious to see what they sound like. I don't know if you remember them in memory, but I mean they were written to you.
Well, let me see if I can. You know, the thing is, his music was not very Brazilian sounding. It didn't have a lot of the folk quality. He would, I mean, I hate to say he's an academic composer because that's like an insult, I think. What he is he's a very European influenced, tonally stretched a little bit, but he's a very romantic composer, but tonally it's a little bit out there. Let me see if I can. You're totally putting me on the spot, guys. Let me see if I can actually find his piece. I don't even know if it's here. It might not be.
It's fine if it's not, but I was just wondering
All
what
right.
it sounds like.
But it's on YouTube. One of the performances. So yeah, you can find it. I just don't see it, unfortunately. But it's a very beautiful concerto. It's really beautiful. Yeah, I don't see it here.
Do you have
Sorry.
any do you have any piece that was commissioned to you that you have like a specific passage that you wanted to show if you happen to have in there?
It's funny. A lot of the pieces that I play, almost all of them, even though they're written for me, I think they are written with me in mind. And people call me a new music guy. I would say that's only true in that it was newly written. I'm not someone who, does that stuff. It's just, I think the viola is a singing instrument. So I am very happy playing Telemon or Petrus Vasks, who's an amazing living Estonian composer. It's so romantic and expressive, and it's just amazing stuff. Um, so I like to think of my way of playing as being essentially like a singer, and that's what I always try to do when I'm playing is to sing. And you can be expression filled, using colors and anger and characteristics, but this is basically a singing instrument. That's the way I think of it. I can certainly play a piece for you, that was written for me that is fast and fun, but it's really not that contemporary.
I mean, if you don't mind.
No, it's fine. Okay. So actually, I just did this online, a couple weeks ago for a festival in Paris. Um, they had asked me if I would take part in this festival, and there's like 4 or 5 different artists from all over the place. And so I did 3 new works written for me for that festival. And so they had to turn the festival into 2 days of concerts, probably because of me. So I feel a little bad, but not really. And so this is going to be the final 2 movements of a sonata by a Swiss composer named Frank Levy. The first one is slow; it's an adagio, and it goes right into a fast movement. And I think together it's about 3.5, 4 minutes. So now that I'm totally not warmed up. Okay. Just have to go here. Okay.
That's awesome. Wow. That's. Are you okay? Are you still
I
breathing?
was worried about hitting the roof, so I was like,
Oh, that's awesome. It's so interesting because it begins with the singing qualities that you talked about the viola, and then goes to a really fun part, which reminds me of like the Hindemith 25-1 last movement, but prettier.
and
That's
much
which.
easier.
Oh, but which piece was that? I'm wondering.
This was by Frank Levy.
Frank Levy. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, my internet disconnected like a few times when you were playing,
Oh
but
yeah. Yes. I
that's
mean,
what.
I actually recorded this. I did two CDs for Noctos, and one of them was his viola sonatas and his two solo suites for viola. That's one of the albums. So yeah, but it's one of my favorite encores that I'll do after a concert. Usually, if a concerto ends soft, because a lot of times viola concertos end very soft, which is great. Like the Walton, it's the greatest ending. Then I'll do something crazy like this. But if a piece ends really big, then I'll probably play something quiet like Summertime or some
Hmm.
Bach or something like that. So anyway,
That's awesome. Thank you for playing.
no problem.
I think Mateos has a question for you. Is that
Okay.
right, Mateos? Yeah.
Okay. Uh, when exactly did you start having ideas of using social media in order to engage people to watch your videos? Could you tell us your secrets? I promise I won't tell it to anyone.
So not only is your English excellent, but you're funny.
Oh, he's the funniest guy ever. You
And
have
I
no
don't mean
idea.
and I don't mean funny looking. I mean you're funny.
Uh,
He is. Trust me, he is.
Thank you.
Um, so I mean, way back in the day when they had something called MySpace, I started using that. I mean, and then they had Facebook, and then I got confused and started calling it My Face. Like, what's that? But I mean, from basically as early as I could, I started doing social media networking. I would say from the very beginning that Facebook came out, I was there. And you guys may be too young to remember, but the whole idea of Facebook was really about connecting with old friends and sharing pictures of your kids, baby pics. It's like reconnecting with high school. But I use it for networking, and it kind of goes back again to the original idea of how to advocate for yourself. Networking doesn't have to mean something slimy, It can mean just being proactive. Who here has ever gone to a party and you didn't know anyone. I mean, I have. And yet there's always one person there that everyone's talking to. It's like, how is that? It's because they're positive and they're in a good frame of mind. They're in this universe, and it sucks people in, and they just want to be around that kind of positive quality. So I think one of the beauties about Facebook and other social media as well, because I have a YouTube channel, SoundCloud, Spotify, I've got everything, is that you're not really exposing yourself to negative forces, because birds of a feather tend to flock together. So you're going to be connected with people who are similar. Maybe other violists want to like say, hey, so nice to meet you. You know, I mean, every day I'm adding to my LinkedIn page, every day. And even Facebook, you know, it's so important for us. We can never have enough friends, enough supporters, enough contacts, because really that's what makes this all work. Music needs everyone pitching in and being supportive, you know. So I don't know if that was helpful or not. It's really not much of a secret.
Talking about friends, there's one person, I think you know her. I think you guys met at the festival, but she made a comment here.
Karini! I love Karini. She's wonderful. Yes. I think 2 or 3. When are you coming to Brazil after the pandemic? That's a very good question. I hope soon. You know, there's a lot of different regions where I'm talking to orchestras, but you know, it's always a problem, you know, because the economics are bad, or you know, the flying is bad because of the virus right now. I think right now everyone has to just kind of chill and use this time as an opportunity to practice, to get creative and plan and kind of crystallize our wish of who we want to be. And this is a time to be busy, but in a very positive way, you know.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I had something that I wanted to add, but I totally forgot now. Sorry, I had a brain fart.
Fine.
Um, the I know that also someone had asked me before about what's your, let's say, preparation for performance, or
Mhm.
like how to deal with anxiety. And I was thinking about that when you performed for us right now, and I was just thinking about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they're two different questions, of course, but they affect each other. Some people just get nervous, and that's just the way they are, and they live with it. Um, I don't get nervous, and I'm completely honest about that. I don't know why that is. I don't know. It was funny. I was just at a festival last summer out in Waranda, Ecuador, and do you know the Brazilian bass player Marcos Machado?
Yeah, we know. Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
he's a good guy. Well, this was his first time he'd heard me play, and he'd heard me rehearsing with the orchestra this Pitombera, which is it's kind of hard. And he's like, Brett, I've never seen a violist who has no fear at all. You have no fear. And I think part of that is that I practice so that I try to be prepared. I try to be prepared. I also learn things quickly, but I like to practice, and I like to be able to let that go and just be free. So I think you can be free if you've done your homework. There's that. The other thing is, I just love what I'm doing so much. Like when I was playing for you guys, I was like, these guys have never heard me. This is so much fun. I want to play with you guys next time in person. And I think when you think about doing something that is scary, that's the same chemical reaction, endorphins, that you have when you're excited about going on a roller coaster. You know, when your first roller coaster is like, oh shit, right? And then you finally go down, it's like, oh, that was great, let's do it again, right? So that's kind of like performing. If you can tell yourself this is exciting to perform, and you get into the spirit and character of the piece, then why get nervous? Because it's not about you. It's about the music. Why do you care if you mess up? They don't care. they're just happy to hear you play, and you're happy to play for them. So all of a sudden, the ego kind of leaves, and you don't get nervous, because nervousness means insecurity. It means being afraid that you're gonna, those are unknowns. So anyway.
But do you feel you have like something that you do outside of the music world that helps you? Because just practicing, I think that it's just a lot of everyone practices, but even so, a lot of people just almost die. Like Shmuel
Yeah,
Ashkenazi, he almost die every time he goes on stage, but he's Shmuel Ashkenazi. But is there like anything extra, like non-musical, that you think that helps you?
I remember I was at Norfolk with the Very my quartet and his quartet. We played the Appalachian String 13 instruments together. None of them, actually Mark did because he played in St. Louis, but the others, they'd never played the piece before. And it's actually quite a hard piece, So they were all, and our first violinist used to be in the Detroit Symphony. Our second violinist was Principal Second of Pittsburgh. So we all knew that piece like nothing. And the first chair guys were, of course, yeah, Shmuel and Richard. And so it was kind of hilarious. Afterwards, we were all drinking about it. But, what you're talking about, some degree we are who we are. And I think if you love playing enough, then it's worth it. It's worth it. I imagine it's the same with athletes. All of my kids are amazing college level athletes. And I find so many parallels between music and sports. So many. The work ethic, they're all home right now, but they're all working out in the backyard with weights and doing things that I should be doing right now. They're working out like crazy, and I'm in my office practicing like crazy. So, and also, I think a similar attribute or quality that sports and music has is the whole idea of the goal. The goal is to basically improve yourself, and there is no end. Basically we practice and then we're dead, and that's it. Right? I mean, there is no point where you can say, yeah, there isn't a point. And so if you're the kind of person that is excited by the fact that it can always be better, as opposed to saying it's never going to be good enough, then that's the real question. I think that will really take care of nerves a lot. Also, from a basic standpoint, especially with students, I encourage them to do more concerts, more recitals. Very often I'll go to a festival and someone will play for me and they sound really good, and I'll say, how long have you been working on this? And let's say for a year. I said, for a year. And the first thing I would say is, if it took you a year, it was too hard. You should have done other pieces. So you only take 3 months, and you can learn more music. But also, just have one performance be your jury or your school recital once a year. You're only learning. The most important part about learning is putting it all out there, right? You're learning the music, that's theoretical. You stand out there and just go for it. That's life. And if you only do that once a year, but you spend 100,000 hours practicing, it's completely warped. So I'm always suggesting my students at Queens to give more recitals. If they have a jury in May, 3 weeks early, do your recital with another person. Do a split recital and do it two different places, in a church or an old person's home or something. And then you're learning how to be your own manager, because you're going to make posters, you're going to videotape, you're going to put it on your website, yada, yada, yada. So you're learning how to be your own advocate while performing more, because if you don't perform, there's nothing to sell.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Right?
I'm sure you guys know the same things, so we all say it differently.
Yeah. No, yeah, but total, like the most important thing, I think it's that, like you said, the performance is the real world. So people will be like, oh, I can do this in the practice room and stuff. That they go on stage and they just like, oh, but I'm just like too nervous, or but the performance, the one time that you have, is actually the real world. Or when you go to master class, then the first time you play, you're so nervous you can't even hold the bow, and then the teacher says some stuff, but then you're like calmer, and then the teacher thinks that the
Right.
things that they said worked, but actually you're just like calmer.
Right.
But yeah, we have to aim for the first performance, right?
I mean, Israel, I enjoy the process. The process is, as they say, the journey is the destination. We all know that phrase, right? And that really makes sense. And I think that's when you learn. And in some ways, every concert you prepare for, every new piece that you're fortunate enough to learn, is kind of like when you're in a raft going down a river and all of a sudden there's a branch sticking out and you decide to hold on to it for a few months, and you work with Mr. Shamitz and you kind of learn how to play that piece and you've gotten a lot from it, and they go thanks, and then you let the branch go and you go down a little bit longer until you get to the next branch. And these are all experiences, and I think as an artist, because we're all artists here, that's how we learn, that's how we grow, is not by failing. This isn't the pass fail thing, this is called the be alive or not be alive thing.
Well, I love the fact that you don't associate that with failing, but it's the journey itself, right?
It's not
It's
failing, it's learning. And I know that auditions are particularly challenging psychologically because, and I've been on many committees on the other side of the screen where all we're thinking is, when is that pizza coming? That's all we're thinking. But actually, it's by far the hardest thing to do is to get an orchestra job. I've been very lucky to basically been able to achieve anything I wanted to do, not because I'm amazing, but just because I'm focused and I have drive. But I can tell you, hands down, the hardest thing is to get an orchestra job because everyone plays well, but also everyone is trying to not mess up, which is the opposite of giving a concert. It's much easier to play the Bartok with the Sao Paulo State Orchestra than it is to audition for them.
yeah.
And I wouldn't want to hear any of them play it as a concerto either, because it's hard. It's hard, it's hard for everyone, right? So an audition process is something that we have to practice a little bit of a disassociation. So I often do mock auditions at festivals to help them do better. Be prepared, play in tune, good rhythm, all that stuff. But play individual, what makes Berlin such an amazing orchestra? They're all monster players. I used to be in the London Symphony about 20 years ago, and I had my trial. It's a very brief time I was playing with them. My trial was sitting with every single person on tour. The last chairperson was old guy, wasn't particularly friendly, and I was asking my friend, who is that guy? Oh, he was the former principal of the Scottish National. He was the first one to do the Bartok concerto. Oh, they all are amazing players. So it's orchestra is an amazing experience, but I think when you're taking an audition, you have to find that balance between playing clean, taking a little bit of energy off so that you keep it all together, but your Mozart sounds different than your Berlioz or your Shostakovich or your Heldenleben. They all have to sound different and unique and beautiful. And I think then you're going to get more success in your auditions. But when we think of, an audition, that's when it gets hard,
Totally. And since we were talking about the process, I know that Bruna is gonna practice her English once again.
So, can you tell us about your practice routine?
Well, I would say I always have a piece that I have coming up. So even now, I have a concerto in North Dakota in September. I have one in October. I have one or two a month. And so I basically know all the concertos I have next season. And so if there are any that are new, like really new, this is the time I learn them. Like I get the first 85%, and I'm usually very quick. So I'll learn a brand new, really hard piece in like 2 days. It won't be great, but I figured out the bowings and the fingerings so that I figured it out. and then I shelf it until like 2 or 3 months before, and then I work on it a lot so that I really feel comfortable. So every piece, it's kind of like baking, and you have different things that take a little bit different time to cook. So you have to time it out, you know. So if I think next year I'm doing Harold in Italy in Florida in February. So I'm not going to look at that probably until like 2 weeks before I have to go down because I played it a lot. But the very next month, I'm back in Orlando playing a brand new piece that hasn't been finished yet. So I'm like, dude, when am I going to do that part? So it really, so that's part of my routine is what I've got coming up. So that's one part of my practice. The other part is again scales, arpeggios, shifting. I like to work on vibrato because we take our vibrato for granted and we can kind of have one vibrato for everything. So I actually work a lot with my students I have a lot of vibrato exercises. And I think it's really important that violists not use the instrument as an excuse. We should play just as well as a violinist. There's no reason. It looks like a violin. It sounds a little better than the violin. It's basically a violin. So I don't understand why violists never practice with their fourth finger, never vibrate, never go past third position, etc., etc. And I think we have almost accepted this as our beloved cross to bear, as if it's cool. and I'm not speaking for everyone, of course, because I know amazing violists, and the level is getting higher all the time. But I encourage my students, and I expect it of myself to constantly be trying to get better with my technique. So I do practice my scales with the metronome, and I do practice octaves and thirds and sixths. And I also love doing etudes because they're short and they usually have a message, you know. And I also, believe it or not, one of the reasons I love teaching is that I'm sure I get more out of it than they do. I think the whole idea of teaching is that you teach to learn twice. You're getting just as much as the student is. So, you know, and it's funny, they don't tell them. Luckily, they're probably not listening to this. But if I have the Forsyth coming up in November also. So this past spring, I had two of my students learn the Forsyth so that I could kind of keep it in my fingers because I haven't played it in like 2 years. You know, it's kind of tricky. So, you know, I love to consider myself and my students sort of on the same journey.
Sweet. And before the last question, someone came up with a question in the YouTube comments, and I'm just gonna put it in here. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you might be able to answer it, but let's see what you get.
To buy a bow. Who are the best? Well, actually, the bow I used is a Brazil bow, but I don't know who the makers are in Brazil. So I guess the real question is go online. Let's use Facebook. Let's, you know, talk to wonderful violists from Brazil. If the bow has to be made in Brazil, then you have to do some research and find out who's there. You know, I would Avelina, I would talk to these three people because they're from Brazil and they probably know a lot about that. In terms of important tips, well, I mean, this viola I play on was made for me. And I think you don't need to spend $40 million for a viola. You know, maybe just you know, get something that fits you, that is comfortable. And if you, I mean, I know you were asking about bows, but in terms of viola, I'm a big fan of playing a smaller viola so you can actually play in tune and you can actually shift and you can feel comfortable. Because if you're relaxed, then you can get a dark sound. Don't get a huge viola that sounds dark because then you can't play in tune. You can only vibrate like this, and you're going to be covered by any other instrument because it's too dark. Similar with the bow, I think you should find one that complements your instrument. So this viola really works well with a bow that has a lot of strength because it's a smaller viola and you don't want to push. You don't want to press. You want to float. But that's another topic for another video.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, the person who made this comment just feel free to ask us. Feel free to contact Fabio, which is, I don't even know if he's, yeah,
But
just
it's
feel free.
again.
Fabio,
What's his last name? Again.
yes, he's actually,
I know
wait,
him
let me
very
just put
well.
here. And let me just put here, wait, where is it?
He's a great guy, very good player too.
Yes, so for example, this
Hey Fabio.
maker here. And there you go. Yes, he's here watching.
So that's the person that he recommends as a bow maker, I guess.
Yes, he's a really good bow maker. And if I can give you guys a tip right now, just because I happen to live in the United States, the American dollar is extremely expensive in Brazil as of right now. So it's actually cheaper for you to literally. Well, of course, we can't travel right now because of the corona, but it's literally cheaper for you to buy a plane ticket, go to Brazil, buy an instrument, and come back than to buy an instrument in the United States. And a lot of them ship from Brazil to the United States. So even, if you want to buy a bow,
Right.
you don't have to go there right now. But it's, yeah, you can, yeah, just saying.
There's so many amazing bow makers and violin makers all over the world. In Poland, in China. I go to China a lot and I'm always meeting makers there, and they make incredible instruments, and they're not that expensive, but they're really well made. And you're not going to have a problem finding something. Um, you know, I think you'll be fine. So Evelina, if you have any questions, or then you can email me also, or text me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. We just started talking today about some of the things. I'm pretty sure she's from Cali, so yeah, she's a very good violist in a great orchestra in Santiago de Cali. So anyway, yeah, but I mean, I'm not much of a tool geek. It's like I'm happy with the stuff, then I just want to sing.
Awesome. So, all right, I'm gonna go then to my. I was gonna go to my last question, but then someone just also asked something. It's kind of off topic, but I'm just gonna put it here anyways, just because it showed up.
Oh, great question. I don't have a favorite interpretation. I just don't. I don't listen to a lot of violists, frankly. I don't. I don't. First of all, I don't listen to another performance to try to play like that person. I think everyone is unique, and I think that's so important for Telemon's music to live in as many different houses as possible. Um, I don't think of myself as a Baroque expert, but I love listening to Baroque ensembles. I love that sound. I love it. And so when I'm playing the Telemon, which I've done a lot, I won't play it the same way I play Bartok, but I'm not going to play it like I'm playing on gut strings and my bow looks weird, because I'm not from that time. So I don't have my favorite interpretation. I just don't.
Cool. So,
Sorry.
um, I'm gonna just put. There are some people who said hi, and I'm gonna put before the last question.
They're
So I
shy.
don't know if you know all of them, but I'm just gonna put it on the screen.
Okay.
And Fabio is also here.
Fabio is awesome. Great guy.
Yeah, there's someone that I don't actually know, but you might know.
Franklin is a very dear friend from Loja, Ecuador, a very good violinist.
Ooh, nice. And then Fabio just led something else. Here.
Okay. It's funny. Maybe one thing I could leave everyone with is another image, another, I won't call it a cautionary tale, but another idea for anyone who perhaps doesn't know what they want to do. Um, you know, have you ever been on a city block and you're waiting to catch a bus, and you're hoping the bus will see you and stop and open the door and say, "Would you like to come in?" That's a very passive way to live your life as an artist. I think what you have to do is you have to get out there in the street and say, "Stop! This is my bus. I'm getting on it." Or do what I did and get your own bus.
Cool. So the last question that we always ask all of our guests
Mhm.
is, in times like these, with the quarantine and everything that has been going on, we actually created this channel to motivate people. A lot of people are not having lessons, or a lot of people just don't have, the access and the technology to do
I know.
things. A lot of people, got their gigs canceled. A lot of people are just not playing any kind of ensemble. So we are living in hard times, and it's not like that's something that we have all the time, so we know the answer. So, what would be your
How do I feel?
advices and suggestions for people to keep motivated in making music?
Well, I mean, thanks for inviting me here. This has been a lot of fun. I guess my advice to everyone would be think about that genie and that lamp. Now is an opportunity to be introspective, to think inward. You don't have the everyday concerns. Now, of course, that also sucks because it's hard to eat. I understand. But try to turn this as a positive, as an opportunity to obviously practice, prepare recitals. I'm giving online concerts all the time. Even this morning, I did one. And it was just so much fun because I have so many solo pieces that are piling up that I have to record and that were written for me. And so I feel like, I got to learn these things. And so this has been great for me to work on my playing, actually. So I would say that's one thing you can do to keep going and stay motivated. Also, I find teaching is just as effective. I know a lot of people say, oh, teaching this way is the worst. It's actually, I don't think it is, unless the reception is so bad. As long as you tell the student to go far enough so you can see both hands and you can hear, yeah, you're going to miss some quality, but you can hear intonation and you can see posture and you can do a lot to help these students grow, even when you're in a pandemic. And as a student, I think there's a lot to learn also that way. Also, I love to watch YouTube of orchestra concerts, quartets. I love to watch old violinists that I admire, like Nathan Milstein and David Oistrakh and Heifetz and things like that. This is a great time to think about what you want to do. If you can dream it, if you can imagine it, you can be it. And this is the time to plan. Get some paper and a pencil and say, okay, I want to be the next great Brazilian quartet player. That's what Bruno says. And then you say, okay, so I need a quartet. And then you say, okay, we need concerts. We need to invite some composers to write for us. This is a time to brainstorm because this craziness is gonna pass. It's gonna pass. In spite of Trump, it's gonna pass. Okay, and when it's over, we're all gonna be better for it. And my hope is that all of us artists will be ready to get out there and be even stronger and more creative and just more powerful than we were beforehand.
Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you so much. And I know that we have our little challenge where we encourage our guests to play.
Uh-oh.
So is that
Yeah.
happening?
Another piece. Let me think here. Okay. Okay, I got something I can play for you. Let's see. I'm doing a new recording this month back in the studios, and it's the music of Cole Porter, George Gershwin, some Broadway stuff, and it's basically going to be crossover. A lot of Tom Jobim, a lot of that kind of fun stuff. So I'm going to play one of the pieces that will be on the album, and here it is. You've probably heard this one before.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Brett,
Amazing.
thank you so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate that
My
you took
pleasure.
some of your time to talk to us, and it was a really thoughtful and insightful conversation. So we really appreciate that you were here with us. And I know Mateo's even prepared something in English for you. He's that dedicated.
Well, I had a great time, guys. It's been great getting to know you all the past couple of weeks, and I wish you all really safe health. And we'll all get together and have a beer when this is all over.
Yes, thank you so much. I think Mateos, do you want to tell him your message in English? There
Hey,
you go.
thank you for having this conversation with us today. Talking to you tonight reminded me of when I watched our videos on YouTube in 2013. I was studying Christian Bach concert, and I had the opportunity to watch your masterclass at Colburn School. That masterclass was so inspiring for me. Thank you so much and see you.
Obrigado.
That's
Oh,
awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
See you guys later.
All
Take
right.
care.
See you. Bye bye.
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 Isso aí, moçada. Muito obrigado a todos que assistiram. Thank you very much for everyone who was with us here today. And I usually don't speak in English, but there are some people here, some foreigners here with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
E nós nos vemos novamente. Quando mesmo?
Segunda.
Segunda.
E antes de tudo,
Segunda, eu nem
Gente,
sei que
olha na
dia é hoje.
programação que a gente vai. Ai! Que a gente vai colocar lá.
e Israel, você é um lazarento, você não me deixa ficar sério, né, rapaz? Israel,
É minha culpa agora.
E,
Quem não te deixa ficar.
também foi o Fábio, Israel e o Fábio.
Foi o Fábio, a culpa não é minha, não.
O que Israel fez?
No começo da live, fica pedindo para não ser sério, e o Fábio no final da live, eu tentando ser sério também.
Matheus, a tua função aqui é alegrar a gente. O próprio Brett falou que tá engraçado.
Pô, tinha eu falando normal?
Até ele disse que tá engraçado. Porque tu é, Matheus. Esse é o teu destino, é ser engraçado.
Eu tinha caído ou não?
Tu caiu acho que umas 2 vezes. Eu também caí umas 2
Não,
vezes.
agora, é que eu
Não?
tava ouvindo vocês ainda, só
Ah,
que
não.
eu tinha clicado em alguma coisa sem querer.
Não, você tá perfeito. Essa risadinha dela. Risadinha de malandrinha. É isso aí então, moçada. Muito obrigado a todos. Hoje
Valeu,
nos
pessoal.
vemos na segunda-feira. E, Matheus, deixa a tua mensagem de sempre.
Vai, momento Matheus.
Mas tem que cantar.
Momento, Matheus.
Momento Naruto.
Canta.
Como é que é mesmo? Eu até esqueci.
Gente, Fábio, que você está assistindo, Jaquian, Avelina, pessoal Sônia, que não sei se ainda está aqui, se não se inscreveram, se
Eu não sei
inscrevam
se
no nosso
Israel
canal.
travou ou se ele tá fazendo igual o Aleixo naquela live.
Não, acho que travou. Só... Ele tá tentando...
O Aleixo já ia dizer, não, peraí.
Mas se inscrevam, curtam, compartilhem o nosso canal. E temos live na segunda-feira às...
É um horário diferente, fiquem de olho.
Isso aí, bom. E se vocês quiserem, escrevam aí para eu fazer jutsu na próxima live. Eu ensino a fazer o Katon Goka Kyo no jutsu. Golpe de Sasuke Uchiha para fazer bolas de fogo. Só dica, fique longe do computador, porque o risco é de você botar fogo nele. Que esse jutsu tem 100% garantia de funcionalidade.
E não esqueçam da hashtag PlayIsraelPlay.
Ai, que malandro.
E
Não vai ter live.
sigam as violas.
Ele não vai ter live 2.0 não, hoje não.
Gente, tem 11 pessoas ainda assistindo.
Então, ainda dá para fazer live 2.0.
Né? Dá pra fazer a live 2.0. Se vocês tiverem perguntas pra nós agora, vocês podem mandar também, porque agora é a live 2.0. Muito obrigado a todo mundo que tá mandando comentários pra gente, gostando do nosso trabalho. A gente faz isso pra vocês.
Valeu, pessoal.
Então a gente agradece de coração que vocês estão gostando. E
A gente vai
era isso.
gostar mais ainda
Vamos montar um coração, ó, depois de
Não.
montar.
A gente vai gostar mais se vocês se inscreverem, tá?
Não, tem que ser assim, ó.
Peraí. É porque tá virado. Oi. Eu não. Bruno, tu consegue alinhar tua mão melhor? Oh, peraí. Sim. Opa, outro lado. É porque a câmera é invertida.
É que eu tô com um foco de luz bem ali.
Ó, dá quase um coração. Dá quase um coração.
30.
A gente tentou, pelo menos. A gente tentou.
Ficou mais ou menos.
Que live é essa?
É a live do Two Violence, né, gurizada?
2.0.
É o Bruno do Fimuca. Do Fimuca.
Bruno do Fimuca.
Valeu, Bruno, por ter falado do nosso canal Instagram.
Quem?
Bruno do Fimuca. Não é o Bruno do Fimuca?
É o Bruno que falou pra gente gravar também o vídeo lá, sabe?
Então, Quem?
A Avelina é da Venezuela, mas ela mora em Cali. Cali na Colômbia? Em Colômbia, parce.
Uau.
Colômbia é re bueno.
Que legal.
Tem quantas pessoas ainda assistindo isso?
Ainda tem 8 pessoas que não tem o que fazer no dia delas, estão assistindo a gente aqui. Ou vocês estão...
8 menos 3, né?
Pois é. Aí tu acaba com a gente.
Acaba com a gente, né?
Hoje tá na hora de dormir, né?
Hoje a gente tá na hora da... Tá passando do horário de dormir da Bruna. Ela tem que sair, porque ela ainda é um nenê. Ela é um nenê do nosso grupo. E ela tem que dormir.
Então, é isso.
É isso.
Tchau.
É isso então. Tchau, moçada. Valeu,
falou
falou.
alguma coisa? Não, né?
O Israel vai ficar sozinho, vamos sair, porque demora, lembra?
1, 2, 3
Não,
e...
Então eles me deixaram sozinhos aqui. E eu queria dar tchau para todo mundo. Goodbye for everyone, to everyone. Adiós para los parces de Colombia. Y hasta luego.